the Steelers have done things so well historically. How did they get into a position, and maybe I'm misreading their position, but they just signed Mason Rudolph,
Yep.
okay? And so how are they getting to a spot? How did they allow themselves to get into a spot where the Vikings all of a sudden are coming in here and looming over this situation? And if Aaron Rodgers doesn't go, is plan B to beg the Falcons to trade them Kirk Cousins? I like, what is Pittsburgh's plan B here? And how did Pittsburgh get to a point where they didn't have a plan B?
Well, I think Pittsburgh and the Giants are the same this way, in that like this is like a very real time example of what happens when you strike out on a quarterback in the first round and how that can wind up reverberating for years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
Like I think in a lot of ways, like this is still the fallout of striking out for the Steelers on Kenny Pickett 3 years ago and for the Giants on Daniel Jones 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And like it feels like those teams are still chasing those mistakes. And oh, by the way, like that's where Aaron Rodgers' opportunity was the last time, because they struck out, the Jets did, on Zach Wilson. And so like there was Aaron Rodgers to come in and save the day. And so, I think in both cases you have situations where the swings and misses on quarterbacks have reverberated. And I think to me, it's almost amped up in Pittsburgh because you have done a lot of other things right. And you've got this team. And I think I made this point earlier in the offseason, Conor, where so much of that roster is in position to win right now. And the window that they're in is not going to last forever. TJ Watt is going to be 31 this year, I believe. Minkah Fitzpatrick's going to be 29. They just traded for DK Metcalf, who's a third contract guy. Cam Hayward is still hanging on. So much of that team, the infrastructure of that team is built to win right now. And, I felt this way going into the offseason, that Pittsburgh was sort of in this spot where it was like, can you get good enough at quarterback fast enough to be in a position to contend at the highest level while Watt and Fitzpatrick and now Metcalf still have enough gas left in the tank to do it? And that's sort of where they're at, which I think is a different position than the Giants, because the Giants, you have younger players. And I think the Giants are essentially asking Aaron Rodgers to do what the Jets asked him to do, which was, we have a promising young core of players here. We've struck out at the quarterback position. We need somebody to come and take this group of young players to the next level, right? So what appeals more to Aaron Rodgers? Is it, I'm going to join a bunch of my peers in Pittsburgh who are as close to contemporaries of mine as you can get? Obviously, he's way older than almost everybody in the league now, right? Like, but that's the closest thing he has to guys who are in the same situation he is, that need to win right now. Or do I want to do what I did before and go to the Giants and try to elevate a younger group of players? The Andrew Thomas, Malik Neighbors, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, that core. I don't know. Like, I mean, it would seem to me like Pittsburgh would probably be the one that, where if you're looking at it and you're him, I already tried that. So like, let's see if this works. And then you have Minnesota as the wild card, which is obviously the best situation for any quarterback out there.
It's the best situation for sure. And the Vikings just, they made a trade over the weekend where they got Jordan Mason out of San Francisco. Yep. And it would seem that they're running
game. I really
game.
like that trade, by the way.
I do too.
He's a good player.
I do too. I think that they're probably better positioned at that at running back than they have been in a long time. But to me, it just goes deeper than that, where if you're Pittsburgh, was it just like a little bit of hubris? Because, all of a sudden on day one of free agency, Justin Fields is gone. Okay. Yep. And then you're like, okay, that's one person off the dance card. And then all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers starts looking in other places and you're like, okay. And then Russell Wilson, I mean, do you still think that, like, is he still in their back pocket at this point as a possible option?
I mean,
like,
maybe out of desperation. That thing didn't end great.
It didn't, right? And I don't know how much. I don't know how much they wanted. I don't know how much.
I mean, I think there are people. I think there are people there that would rather have Joe Flacco than Russell Wilson.
And it's so funny that Joe Flacco is now at the center of this.
Well, and I don't. Is he a bad option though?
No.
Like, I don't think he is. Like, if you need somebody, if you're in a desperate spot and you need somebody to just steady the ship for a year, like, I don't think he's I don't think he's a bad option. If you look at it statistically, um, like, I don't know. I mean, he's gonna come in, it's gonna be low drama, right? Like, and
It's
he's
certainly
just
gonna be
gonna be
low
the
drama.
huh?
I said it's certainly gonna be low drama.
Yeah. I mean, but you're not gonna have if you're the Giants or Steelers, it's not the worst idea in the world. Now, the Cousins thing is still floating around out there, and I do think, like, to me, it's the idea of Kirk Cousins appeals to me if I'm the Giants or Steelers too, you know? I don't know how much Russell Wilson has left in the tank, So, like, could Cleveland get desperate? And maybe Cleveland's the answer. I don't know, but certainly like Rodgers is holding this whole thing up, and is Stafford before it, right? Like Stafford, like held a lot of these things up for a few weeks and the planning for a few weeks, but the Stafford thing was done before the start of the league year. Now we're into the league year, and you have these other quarterbacks that are just sitting out there without starting jobs. And I think credit to like the Seahawks and the Jets too for using like, hey, you can come here and be a multi-year starter to land Sam Darnold and Justin Fields. You know what I mean? Like, because that was what the Steelers and Giants like couldn't do with players like
Right.
that. So like I think the Seahawks and the Jets sort of took advantage of the opportunity to bring guys in on the promise that we're going to give you a little bit of runway to be the quarterback here.